Yeah, it goes late nights on the road. Yeah, that's just how it goes. Yeah, that's just how it goes these days. I'ma try my best to make this flight, but if I don't wake up tomorrow, then the sun will still be. Yeah,
ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another podcast with your host, the Ocean Flight 111, heading straight to full potential with zero delays. Guys, we have a guest today. Not just any guest. Let me introduce him. Guys, today our guest is a proud Cork native. He's a poet and author. He's a winner of the Mental Health Blog of the Year 2022 for his blog Thoughts Too Big. He's released 4 books, and his newest is entitled Lonely Boy. As well as that, he's a mental health advocate. He also spreads the knowledge and insightful wisdom to help people navigate their journeys via mental health and just life in general. Guys, only about a week ago, he did a TED Talk. Yeah, a TED Talk. Goddamn. He's a lovely lad, a very sweet, unique individual. And he also has bars, bro. He knows how to rap too. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome Daragh Fleming to the podcast.
Beautiful introduction, man. Wow, you really nailed it. I'm not sure about the rap thing, but you know.
So, before you were living high in Barcelona and your schedule was as packed as it is, let's bring it back to your young days. A young lad growing up in Cork. Grew up in the countryside. I take it grew up in the countryside of that Cork City.
Yeah. I grew up in a place called Glounthaune, which is about 15 minutes outside the city, but living next to cornfields and cows and sheep. So it was the best of both worlds. It was good.
And what's that like? Would you have gone into the city much growing up? Would you spend much time in the city, like going in maybe to the cinema or meeting friends or whatever? Or were you out in the countryside? Were you culty?
No, like I just unnecessarily like complicated. So I went to school in a place called Douglas, which is in the city. So my parents used to drive me up to school there every day, and I used to hang out there and hanging out in the city centre. So like I very much slept and like fed myself in the country, and then all my friends were in the city. So it was very much like a duality of like living in the country, but like existing in the city, I suppose.
Okay, man. So, suppose from your childhood, would you consider yourself someone who had a nice childhood, a happy childhood, or did it come with its own ups and downs, or how maybe would you describe maybe your childhood?
Good question. People don't really ask that question. That's good. Good, really, really good childhood would be the headline. Like, my parents are incredibly supportive. Me and my brother are really close. We're encouraged to do whatever we wanted. Like, my parents were very much like, they never said no to ambition. So I remember I wanted to do karate. I wanted to play guitar. If I wanted to play basketball, they're like, yeah, you can try it out. Definitely, there was never no's. But so that was great. And then just very much like no complaints childhood, no notes. It was pretty sweet.
Yeah,
which is a blessing and a privilege.
Yeah, the reason I'm always intrigued too, just about your teenage years with drink, is because that's something that would have, like, for me personally, my teenage years, like, I just binge drink. So I grew up like around a lot of alcoholics, unfortunately. So I learned from an early age like the bad stuff with drink, and instead of like choosing not to drink or enjoying drink, which I would do now.
Definitely not aware of it as a kid, like because you kind of just assume like you're in your bubble. This is the
technical difficulties of learning something for the first time.
Is almost the same. And I remember even like my parents never told me.
They never the whole like actual recording is
said like just straight out we're not allowed to drink. They never like, made that a forbidden thing. They just sat us down and they explained it to us, and they explained their experience with drink, and then they said, we'd rather if you didn't drink, but it's up to you. You have to make your own decisions. And it was the same with like drug taking and stuff. And that they kind of just gave us this autonomy at such a young age to be like, to be able to make responsible decisions. And I think that's really what made the difference, because it wasn't a case of like, oh, we have to do what we're told. It was like a mutual respect where like, I don't want to disappoint my parents because they've been so open and understanding with me. And then I didn't drink till I was 18 as a result, and neither did my brother. And it was purely just because they treated us with respect.
Technical difficulties.
Here's the reasons we'd prefer if you didn't drink. But like, sorry, to answer your actual question, didn't realise, I mean, that for me I knew at the time was a bit unusual, the alcohol thing, but generally I just thought everyone's parents were the same. You know, when you're a kid, you are just like a carbon copy of your friends. And it's only as you get older that you kind of become your unique self and you start understanding who you are. And that's when I think, the older people get, the more peculiar they get because they start becoming comfortable with who they are, which is amazing. But I think, as a kid, you're kind of just like everyone else.
The reason I was asking about like your childhood and just your teenage years is because I'm a big believer in like how someone's childhood can help mold in them in a good way or in a bad way or whatnot, just learning from my own experiences. And also having a supportive family. And also interesting, I was speaking about my drink. Obviously, when I was in my teenage years, I abused drink like really badly because instead of taking like the side of wait, maybe I shouldn't drink, however I felt then, and I used drink to like cancel out maybe how I was trying to feel at that period of time in my life, just been surrounded with my ups and downs. So when you hit 18, did you start drinking? Or well, maybe I'll probably bring it back a little bit just because your teenage years very impactful. 13, 14, 15, are you just a bright-eyed teenager going about your life? I know you're playing basketball maybe around that time. What's that little period maybe before things maybe got a little bit turbulent?
Literally just like started playing basketball when I was about 11, and then that was just my sole obsession. Just wanted to be as good as I could be, trained as much as I could, and nothing else really mattered. Like I was always a good student because I had this thing which I learned about in college called adolescent photographic memory. So from the age of like, dope. I don't know, like 9 till about 23, I had more or less photographic memory, which was really handy for school. It just made things quite easy because it's just like a memory test. So if you can remember all the pages, it makes things very straightforward.
Yeah, man.
So like always good in school, loved playing basketball, and that was pretty much my teenage years. And I think, looking back now, I think the way I was brought up and by my parents and like the household I lived in, because they never denied our ability to be able to do something. Like, if you want to go do karate, you can do that. If you want to play basketball, you can do that. It just kind of instilled this kind of immutable self-belief in me and my brother, where it's like if we want to do something and if we put the work into something, we can do it. And then if you look at me and my brother now, like, I mean, I'm doing, all the stuff I'm doing with writing and speaking and with mental health and just chasing after the thing I want. And my brother is very similar, but he does it in a very different way. He's an ultramarathon runner. I think he's top 3 ultramarathon runner in Ireland at the moment. He runs for Ireland. Wow. He just did a race in Sweden, a 100-kilometer race, came 5th. So, like, we just have this kind of unwavering self-belief and determination. I think that comes from the fact that our parents never kind of shamed us for wanting to do something, and never was like, you probably can't do that. They were just like, yeah, give it a try. Yeah. Maybe you will be good at this. And I think that's what that instilled, for sure.
Does it ever enter your mind, maybe as time goes past, I don't know if you'd like children or not, if you were to become a father at some point, if or not, that you would use a lot of what you learned from your parents or how your parents may have like treated you, maybe if you were to have kids, or be a good uncle or whatever it may be the case?
Yeah, like I think, I don't know when or how, but I have always kind of envisioned that I'd eventually be a father.
Well, we have an idea of maybe how. We could probably...
yeah.
Maybe when is another thing.
When, like I just need to figure out the logistics. But,
yeah. Just a little bit of navigation there.
But 100%. Like I think the way they brought us up was very like open-minded and considerate and respectful, and just never like. Obviously, when your children treated you like children as much as they needed to, but like when we got to the point of being teenagers, it was very much like, we are now helping you to become responsible and like responsible adults, and like kind of, and also like a lot of teaching through behavior. Like my parents are both very good people. My dad like wouldn't be the biggest talker ever, but he's a good man. Actions because he's like the way he interacts with the world shows that he's a good man, and he kind of instilled this idea of like and this is a fucking Dumbledore quote, but anyway, it's very similar to my dad, like doing the right thing is not always doing the easy thing, and he's just a very like morally like you always have to try and do the right thing even if it isn't something you want to do or is hard to do. Like that's very much his like ethos as an individual, and similar to my mother, like, and I think that's I think, you know, if we're going to talk about becoming a parent, I think the biggest thing is like, if you are a good person, then you will naturally and subconsciously instill that in your children as well.
Yeah, no, 100%, my man. It's definitely something I struggle with personally, thinking of. I think, like, keeping it 100, I'd make an absolute incredible father. Mm-hmm. But keeping 100, I would be almost right now at this period in my life, in this moment, I would be like just hit with a juggerload of like all my stuff going on to them, not wanting my negative sides and my like parts of my personality I'm still trying to work on and still trying to move and heal through. So it would be the back of my mind of like offloading that, not intentionally, but like subconsciously offloading that onto like some sharp young Merton Ocean or Merton Ocean Jr. Like, bruh, he trying to go to the moon. Yeah. He ain't trying to hit with all my stuff.
Yeah. Let him go to the moon. Let him go.
Yeah. So, you're going through your teenage years. You have great role models of your parents. You're not really drinking. It's all going smoothly, or maybe to what, like an average person. Then it start getting more turbulent, 17, 18, 19, because I know something start to happen, be the relationship or your friend or...
Yeah, like, so a few things happened. At 16, I had, like, my first girlfriend, and it was weird, like, because around that time, I was, like, for context, like, I was fat as a child, like, quite a fat child. And then
fat, where we can, it's all good to make jokes about, or fat still quite sensitive?
It's all good to make jokes about it now. Like,
Good.
But like, as a result of that, like, and like, then I started playing basketball and I lost the weight, but I still had like I suppose the perception of myself as like, you know, not in good shape, whatever, kind of like a body dysmorphia issue kind of going on. And then I remember we used to hang out with these girls from a different school, and one day they made a list of like the lads ranked in terms of like attractiveness, and I was at the
sounds like school, right?
Yeah, and I was at the top of most of their lists when I was 16, and I was just like my mind was blown. I was just like, what? Like, no, like I'm the fat kid, but like, so I just didn't have the correct assessment of myself, and but anyway. I'm saying that because I got in a relationship with a girl who I thought was like way out of my league. Like, she was beautiful, she's amazing, and that kind of set the tone for the relationship, like the dynamic where she kind of had all the control. I was always like probably being a bit too needy, paranoid, not being very trusting. So like it kind of set it up for like me always being like vigilant that she could get with other people, because she could get with anyone, you know. She was beautiful, and then she did cheat on me, and we broke up, and then we got back together, and then she started cheating on me again with the same person, and that really like messed with my head, because like trust issues and like everything I was afraid,
especially such a young age too.
Yeah,
such a young age, like,
and
such an impressionable age.
And like everything I feared had come true. Like my worst fear would be like that she'd cheat on me, and then it did come true, and then it came true multiple times. So that really messed with my like ability to like form like safe and like trusting relationships. And a few months, like maybe half a year after that, my best friend when I was 17 took his own life. So we had these, and that was like colossally like world shaking. It changed my whole life. It changed the entire course of my life. So I had these two like traumas quite close together, one being obviously way more impactful than the other, like the suicide of my best friend, but because they both happened together, I never really got, well, I did eventually, but like at that point, like I was being supported for grieving my friend, and I never really got to figure out the trust issues in the relationship, and as a result of that, like I became depressed for about 4 years, and then when I came out of that, I was no longer depressed, but I still had my issue with maintaining and building relationships. And for a lot of my early 20s, I ran from relationships. I was very like afraid of commitment, and if anything started getting real, I just made excuses for it to end. And that stemmed from a case of like, well, if I open up to this person, they could hurt me, and I don't want to be hurt again. So I just always made excuses for like, and I've never been in a long-term relationship, and I'm 29 in 2 weeks, and that's often quite weird to think about, because like
I'm with you there, bro.
Yeah,
you ain't the only one, bro.
yeah. It's like
I'm with you there.
It reminds me of Phoebe and Friends, like when she's like, I've never been in a long-term relationship, but yeah, and that's very much because of like I didn't get an opportunity when it happened to process and like work through in a healthy way the cheating, because my friend took his own life, and that kind of took precedence, and I had to deal with that, and that was an absolute nightmare. And you know, I think I'll always be dealing with that, but it was only in the last 2 or 3 years that I actually did the work to figure out why I was running from relationships. And it just takes time to work through it. Because like when
Can I bring you back?
Yeah, bring me.
Can I bring you back for a second? You spoke about in another podcast. You spoke about when something of that like magnitude happens, be it the relationship or be it losing your friend. Irby, just so correct. I want to get his name right. Just to correct. Irby. Yeah. Shout out my man. You spoke about in the podcast before how when something or them things happen like that magnitude, it's almost hard to communicate with other people who may see everything as daisy or maybe see everything as like life is just grand. What are you worrying about? So before maybe them two things happened and after that happened, were you looking at life as like, what on earth is this? Like when I was 16, 17, I didn't have to that magnitude, but I found out about the law of attraction. I was like, oh my God, all I got to do is think positive. All good, all good. And then 3 months later, I had a mental breakdown and I was like, oh my God, what is life? Like, I didn't know life could be like this. Like, what's happening? So was there a little bit of like confusion? Well, I'm sure there was confusion, but of like, wait, why is life? Why is this happening to me? Why did all this hit me at once? Like, why me? And so was there a lot of confusion? There must have been like hella confusion going on at that period of time.
Yeah, like it definitely got quite nihilistic. That I just, because like my friend Irby, like from the outside looking in, even from my perspective, and he was like, we were absolute best friends. I didn't know he was struggling. There was anything wrong. And so to me, he was like a very happy person, and he was very like successful socially in terms of like, you know, he's good looking, he was good at basketball, girls liked him, fellas liked him, you know, he was very popular. And I just didn't really understand how someone in that position could take their own life, because I was like,
yeah,
if this can happen to someone like Irby, this can happen to anyone, which is terrifying. And it just, yeah, there was a lot of questioning of like, what is the kind of, and I still talk about this in my work today, like what is the point of all of this, like what is the actual meaning of all this suffering and all this messed upness, like what is it all for? And those questions were definitely heightened 17, 18, 19, and it was very confusing. And then I suppose when I got depressed, like I stopped feeling emotions, like I couldn't, so
it was like numb,
completely numb, like and then like a life without emotion is kind of like you're not really living, you're just going through the motions of a life, but you're not really feeling anything, because I think you need emotion to connect with anything. So if you don't have it, you're not making any connection with people, with the things you're doing, with the universe. You're just very much like, I'm here, but I'm not here.
When you were in that, because anytime that's happened to me, and it's been very brief, I'm very lucky. Like I feel lows, I feel highs. I'm very lucky. I would say blessed that I feel emotion, because I would say it is a blessing. Because your negative emotion tells you it's signaling something is wrong. Your happy emotion is telling you something's good. So it's an important compass. Whenever I did feel that, it's like I'm an autopilot and numbing. It's like the exact feeling. I was like, wait, what does, nothing makes sense. Like if I'm not going to feel bad, I'm not going to feel like, did you want to feel something? Did you want to feel the pain of what was happening? Or how did you kind of look at that emotion? Were you kind of like in a numb where like, I'd rather not feel that, like I'd rather feel numb than feel that like haunting?
It's actually very strange, because when I was numb, I didn't know I was numb, because the numbness also numbed like the feeling of fear that you're not feeling emotion. Like as in like I knew intellectually I wasn't feeling emotion, and because I couldn't connect with that fact emotionally, I didn't care. I was like, okay, well, I'm just not feeling emotion, and it is what it is. And then it was only when I came out of it and started feeling emotion again that I realized how scary that is. Because you're just like, literally nothing matters to you. Like I'd get good news and I'd pretend to be happy and I'd just not feel anything. Or I'd get bad news and I'd pretend to be upset or angry and there'd be nothing actually happening. But I knew enough about, I was emotionally intelligent enough to know the emotions other people would expect from me, because I didn't want them to think there was something wrong. So I'd like almost like pantomime the emotions, where it's like, oh yeah, I'm delighted that happened or whatever.
When I could definitely relate when you were pretending, say something great happened, and you would pretend because you had the emotional intelligence awareness to know how you should, like it looked like you should be reacting. Was the sense of a mask going on? Like you're putting up the mask and like you can entertain it, and then right behind it. And how did that feel with your like personality? Because I remember one time Barcelona, we're shooting a video. It's incredible. All my friends around and we're shooting late nights. It's called Life is Incredible. Oh, thanks, man. It's on the start of the podcast too.
Yeah, it's a banger.
Everything is life. I had money, family's healthy, everything's Gucci. My internal was just going crazy though, and I felt like absolute shit on the bunkers in Barcelona. I don't know if you're familiar. And exactly the same. I just knew how I was supposed to, and I remember just looking. It was like I was looking at myself perform to everyone else around. So did it feel like that? Did it feel like you had to put on a performance when like you had to like act maybe happy or?
Yeah, because like before all that stuff happened, like people would have, and accurately, describe me as like someone who's very happy, never in a bad mood, never worried, just like a happy, idyllic like teenager. And then after it was just like I knew that people expected that from me, because that was the version they had of me before all the shit happened. So I was like, I still need to be this person. So I was still attempting to be that like, no worries, everything's fine, I'm happy person when I wasn't feeling that way. But it was because I was like, well, this is who I am to people, so I need to be this person. And in reality, I was like struggling very much so. And like when I was on my own, there was nothing that could pull me out of it. And that's why I like used being like busy and productive as ways to deal with it. So I'd like do a lot of studying, or I'd play a lot of basketball. These things I was good at and or enjoyed, because it just took me away from spending time on my own. Because it was like when I was around other people, I knew I could perform, and if I could perform, then I didn't have to think about how I was really feeling. And it was only when I was on my own that I had to sit with there's something wrong, you don't want to be here, or you don't want to be here, you don't care enough to want to be here or not want to be here. Like you don't have any like skin in the game, you're just here. Which was really, really, as I said, when I came out of depression, a really scary thing to realize had happened.
I have a question for you, Daragh. Well, I suppose I have a couple of questions. So the way I view kind of like depression, I kind of view as clouds. And I view like, and like the whole dark cloud I know is used the whole time, but I do kind of, and I use kind of like happiness of the sun too. The clouds do come in, but then they go away. And the more that I learn about myself and the more I progress, the clouds just, they kind of gently go away now. But they always come back. Like they always appear, and I look at them and I'm like, just analogy, looking at depression, I'm like, yes, that's there right now, but I know instead of 7 days, it's going to be 2 hours now before that disappears. And that will gently disappear because I know my tools, I know all the things I've put into practice. So do you view depression as something that just like that was that part of my life, or does it creep in? How can you view it, I guess?
No, it definitely creeps back in, and it's an interesting analogy. Like, and I definitely use a similar analogy when I talk about emotion. Like, that like emotions are, by their inherent definition, it's impossible for any emotion to last forever. So even if you like, we all want to be happy, and like, but happiness is as fleeting as sadness and anger. So you will feel happy, but then in a few minutes, a few hours, that'll change and you'll be feeling something else, and it's always moving. But for me with depression, like it's not really an emotion because it's a lack of emotion. So like for me, depression's more of like a vacuum where it's like like weather can't even happen in here. There can't even be clouds. There can't even be sunshine because it's all been pulled out. But like I went through it, and then, you know, once I got better, I kind of naively thought like, oh well, I've beaten depression now, can tick that box, that'll never affect me again. But like it has affected me, and there are moments and weeks and months where I can feel that I'm not where I should be. Like I can feel myself stop, 100%. Like not feeling emotion as strongly anymore, or like going into low mood or going into a spiral, and I can feel that because I've been through it, so I know when it's coming back. And like the last time it really happened severely was at the start of the pandemic. I could feel myself slipping back into depression, and that's when I started writing Lonely Boy, because I was like, I can't let this happen again. So I need to figure out why my mental health is being affected by different things, and that's basically what Lonely Boy is about. But yeah, so I don't think of it as something that like happened and will never happen again. Like mental health can change the same way physical health can. So like, you know, I had COVID in 2021 and then I got it again 3 months ago. So like I had depression in 2017. It doesn't mean I won't be depressed again at some point. It could happen, you know.
Just so many questions. I'm trying to stop myself from saying them all at once. Something I think is very important and that you do very well. There's a rapper called Nas, right? Shout out Nas, he's one of my favorite rappers. And I can't remember Nas's friend, but Nas's friend passed away when they were young. I think they were only 15 or 16. And throughout his whole career, he mentioned him and kept mentioning him and put him in songs and shouted him out like at performances. Nice. And all of a sudden, his friend who'd passed away that like the world would have never known, all of a sudden he brings him to the forefront, where I'm going to get his name and I'll put it in the context for after. But hip-hop fans around the world have been hearing his name for like 20, 30 years. So because Irby was such a great friend to you, do you always like bringing it up? Obviously, it's always going to be hard to like chat about the story, but is it nice for you to bring him up and chat about him, of the kind of guy he was, and keep his memory alive and have it in a positive light? While it may have been a negative thing, he had so much life, there's so much positivity in his life. You said like he was so good at so many things. Does it mean a lot to you to keep his memory going?
100%. Like there's a quote, and it's a quite an old quote, but I think Macklemore mentions in the song at some point that like you die twice, the day you die and the day someone mentions your name for the last time, which I think is a beautiful sentiment. And like at this point in my life, like it's 12 years since Irby died, I don't, for the most part, get sad when I think about him or talk about him. It's more like, as you said, like kind of reliving funny moments or things we did together. And like I do talk about him a lot, and if I'm ever giving a talk to people, like he'll be mentioned, or I mention him, like if something reminds me of him, like I'll talk. And I'm very aware of like it's interesting, like grief does something to memory, where like say if you had a friend when you were, and I've had friends, like say I had friends when I was a kid and they were good friends of mine, and then we grew apart and now they're not really friends of mine anymore. So I don't really think about them, and I don't really know about them or like know what they're doing in their lives. But grief, like if you lose someone, it's almost like it's impossible for you to forget them. Like if there's grief attached to the memory of this person, then like the memories are like crystallized, and you can remember all these little moments and details. And like I don't think there'll ever be a time where it'll get to a place where like, geez, I haven't thought of Irby in 10 years. You know, it'll be like I think about Irby every day. And I think that's what grief does.
What's maybe a funny memory? What's a funny memory you got, or something, a cherished moment maybe, or what's something with...
My favourite one is, so we both play basketball, we're both on the same team. And we both had different, like...
do you guys have the dreams now, or playing professionally? Are you trying to make NBA here?
Oh, yeah,
you're like,
yeah. Oh, for sure. Like, yeah. We're like... And like, I was like small and white, so I didn't really have much of a hope. But Irby was tall, and he was black, and he was American. So I was like, dude, you might be able to do this. And so we were playing basketball in my house one time, and I said, okay, like first to 11, if I win, I want your shoes, because he had these high top Air Force Ones. So I was paying him for his shoes. So I was like, okay, and I had these like high top like Adidas. They were red and black. My girlfriend had got them for me, and. So I beat him. Somehow I beat him. Because I was probably a better shooter than he was, but he was like taller and bigger, so he's better at getting to the rim. But I beat him, and he thought I wasn't going to take his shoes, like he thought it was a joke. And I was like, no, seriously, like, give me your shoes. And he was so
annoyed. Give me your shoes now.
And he was so annoyed at me, and I put them on, and they were way too big for me. So then he went into the house, got my shoes, put them on, and started running around in the mud to try and like piss me off. He was like, if you're going to keep my shoes, I'm going to ruin your shoes. And it was just... I just remembered clearly like the picture of both of us just stomping in the mud in each other's shoes because we were just annoyed at each other. It was just so funny, like so funny. It was so stupid.
Beautiful, man.
Yeah, good times.
Often some of the fondest memories are just stupid moments, and just we always we smile when we hear them and whatnot. But beautiful. Daragh, poetry. When does poetry enter your life? Did poetry in the background again? Was it like chilling there throughout your life, and then you started like giving energy to it? You started putting time into it, or did it just come later in life? Or so when does kind of poetry enter? Your life?
It enters quite early and then it goes dormant for about 15 years. But I remember I wrote my first poem when I was...
It just left. It was like, bro, see you in 15 years, man.
Yeah. So it was like when I was 7, I wrote my first poem and it was about a monkey.
Beautiful.
Because I was obsessed with monkeys and like dinosaurs and stuff, as any 7-year-old would be. So I wrote... Yeah,
I still am.
Yeah, for sure. So I wrote it about a monkey and that was that. And then like, I think really though, my relationship to rap music was more my entry point to poetry. Because like in school, I liked poetry, but like I thought it was all very like esoteric and vague and hard to understand. But the poetry of like good lyrics, and not just rap, but like, you know, for example, Dermot Kennedy's an incredible poet, would be an example. But like just the poetry of like lyricism and wordplay, I have always been fascinated by, and I like huge fan of like Eminem, 50 Cent, Mac Miller, J. Cole, like all these people growing up, and Lil Wayne, especially like Lil Wayne, I was blown away by because he never wrote anything. I was like, this is insane.
Ridiculous.
So like I was always obsessed with the ability to do that. And then I suppose I started writing. So I'd always kind of like do bits and pieces, but I didn't really start taking it seriously as like something I would do till I was about 21, 22. And it was very much a mental health tool for me because I found that like, because I'm still in the space where like I can't really feel emotions very strongly, but poetry allowed me to sit in the moment with an emotion. And as I sat in it, I could feel it more strongly because I was writing about it. So I was like, okay, this is actually how I'm feeling. And then even like just after the depression, I'd feel a certain way, but I wouldn't know what the emotion was. Like I couldn't label it. And poetry really helped me to figure that out. It's like, oh, I'm feeling multiple things because of a certain situation, and that's what it's manifesting as maybe anger, but it's really I'm disappointed and I'm upset, and that's coming out as anger. So it really helped me to like contextualize my emotion, and that was from like the age of 21, and I've been writing it ever since. But yeah, I think the thing that caught me first is like just rap, like, and how like beautiful and impressive and like just the genius of good rap is like, it's incredible. Like it blows my mind every time. I'm like, how the hell? Like for example, Little Dicky did a freestyle on. Sorry, there's some background noise here. Little Dicky did a freestyle on Sway in the Morning, 5-minute freestyle, and like I still listen to that. I listen to it all the time, and there's always new bars that I didn't pick up on or new like wordplay, and I'm like, this is an art form. Like it really is, and like, you know, for the longest time, and it still gets. And there is bad rap too, but like. You know, it's seen as this kind of like trivial, not really impressive thing, and it's genuinely like one of the most impressive things to me personally.
Kendrick and I think was it the Polar? What's that award called? The Polar. It's a famous, I think the Polar something award. I'll pick it up. It's for literature. I'm sure. I think he picked up. For literature.
The Pulitzer.
Is that the one?
The Pulitzer Prize. Yeah.
Pulitzer. I think it's 2018, 2019. Which was huge for hip hop, first hip hop artist ever to pick that up. Yeah, man, rap. Well, first of all, yeah, to break a little side bit into that, the way our relationship started was just via TikTok. I started seeing your videos and dropping comments. You started seeing my videos, dropping comments. So, thus, you being a poet too, they're so related. But if we were to write a poem now, so if we were to write like a song. This is like I'm confident. I know how to structure this. If we would write a poem, I could write a poem, but I know it's not good. I know your poetry, and I've read your poetry. It's not going to be anything in comparison, just because they're related, but they're two at the same time. They're two things that are respected in their own like categories.
Yeah, I mean, there's different features. There's there's different features to both. Like, so most contemporary poetry won't rhyme, and like rhyme is inherent.
Why is
to
that,
rap.
Daragh? Why is that? Is that like obviously like all art forms, they go through their growing pains, their different type of changes. is that just right now that is like the style that like where poetry is at, or how does that come about, I guess?
Yeah, like I don't know in particular, but yeah, it is just a style change. I suppose the culture of poetry has just moved in that direction. Now there is still poetry that rhymes, but it's just not as common. And then like there's even a split between like written poetry and spoken word poetry, and spoken word poetry would be more inclined to rhyme. Now it mightn't rhyme all the time, but there'll be rhymes throughout, and that's probably spoken word's probably closer to rap than traditional poetry would be. But like they're all kind of cousins, I guess.
I get you. Just you're speaking about how your poetry contributed, like helped to like healing and whatnot. Around that time when you started poetry, were you doing therapy? Were you still playing basketball? Had basketball took the back burner? What kind of period of your life was that like? Was there any therapy going on at that point, or did you enter that at all?
Yeah. So when I was 21, so like I found out I was depressed like through like learning it I did applied psychology in college, and I found out through a lecture.
I was gonna say all this is college too. You're all in college too,
still
so
in college,
you're juggling like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, and I found out in a lecture that I kind of saw myself in the symptoms of depression, but then I left it for a year because I was still very much like under the stigma and the shame, and like there's something wrong with me. I shouldn't be depressed. All that kind of bullshit. And then I had a panic attack on a night out, and after that, I kind of couldn't deny that I needed help any longer. So I went to therapy, like in like student counselling, for about 6 months. And like this whole time, like I think the constant, and I'm so grateful to it as a result, like basketball never stopped, and like the support I got from my basketball club and the teams I was on, because I was on most of the teams I was on with Irby, so they were all hurting from him as well. It was such a constant into my life and such an outlet and such a crutch that like I don't know if I'd still be here like if I didn't have basketball through that period of my life. And I only stopped playing in 2020. Like that was like when I kind of, because the pandemic, we skipped a season, and then I was kind of getting more into my writing. And
them legs went. Am I right, Sarah? Yeah. Them hammers just went. It's like, bro, we can't do this anymore. Yeah. Poetry easier.
Exactly. Yeah. But I was playing at like the highest level you can play in Ireland, and it's a massive commitment, and I wanted to do more of my writing career, and I didn't really have time to do both, and I never wanted to do like something half-hearted. Like if I was going to play basketball, I wanted to play at the highest level I could, or not at all. So I stopped playing and just focused more on the writing. But yeah, so like in this time, going to therapy, basketball was absolutely essential for me. Like I don't know where it'd be if I didn't have it during that time in my life. And that's kind of, where I was when it all kind of went. And then like out of all that, like it's crazy, like out of all that like suffering and pain came my purpose in life, like what I would say is my purpose, which is like to normalize the conversation around mental health, to write good things so that people don't feel alone, so that they can understand that like other people are going through what they're going through and they don't have to shoulder the weight on their own. I feel like that's my purpose, and that wouldn't have come about if I didn't have to go through all that shit first. So
yeah, man, and you definitely went through your fair share. Daragh, you spoke about panic attack. I never had a panic attack until, and I'm still actually blessed I never had one, until nearly I was coming back from Longford from a gig, and I had a marathon coming up that I hadn't trained for, and was about to sneak into two, but so I was about to sneak in and untrained for, guys, that's a story for another time. I was about to interview a rapper for work called Millies, who I was really excited to interview, but I'd never interviewed someone yet. And I was moving to Spain, so all in the space of about 10 days, and I was trying to get money together for moving to Spain. And so obviously moving country, a big job opportunity, and sneaking into a marathon that I hadn't prepared for. So I was coming down on the bus and it just all hit me. I was like, bruh, a marathon, you're moving country, you don't have enough money. And it just all woof. And thankfully, I'm huge into meditation, like have been for the last about 3 years. I understand what was happening in my body, and straight away the panic, like I was about to kick in, and I was able to just like bring it into a meditation, like slow down and whatnot. But to someone that has never maybe experienced a panic attack, you mentioned about you had one on a night out. What does someone feel when they're having a panic attack?
Yeah, like
or maybe not feel. What does someone maybe not feel? Maybe.
Yeah, no, fair. And obviously there's different intensities of panic attacks. Like sometimes I've had panic attacks and they haven't been as bad as others. But like, yeah, it's usually just like you feel like you're in like severe danger. Like your body reacts as if you're in danger, even though there's no real perceivable danger around you. You know. So sorry, there's noises happening on my computer. So you very much feel like you're in danger. You can't really breathe. Like you're very much caught for your breath. Heart rate's going 90. You're sweating, and it's just this like irresistible urge to get out of wherever you are. And then there's like the fear because like your body thinks you're in danger, so you feel like terrified, even though there's nothing really that might be dangerous around you. So it's very intense in that sense, and like your body's just kind of out of control. Like for me, it's very like get really sweaty really fast, and then it gets really cold. You start like tremoring, can't breathe, can't concentrate, can't focus, and it's just very intense, and you lose your sense of control, which is probably the scariest part. So that's what like that first one felt like, and I've had panic attacks since, like, and I actually had one probably like a month ago here in Barcelona. But like at this point with panic attacks, I know how to like work through them. So I just tell, like, I was with some friends, like, and some of them I'd be close to, and some of them not so much. So I just pulled over one of the lads who I'd be close with, and I'd be like, "Hey, look, I'm having a panic attack. I'm just going to breathe through it, but like, can you just keep people away from me, because I don't want to like make a scene or like have everyone on top of me while I'm having a panic attack."
Are you aware of the triggers too, Daragh, or could it strike at any moment? Or are you aware of the triggers before? Can you even is it premeditated? Not that you're premeditating it, but you can almost see it coming, or like where you're like, okay, this is about to happen, I'm ready, or can it just happen out the blue?
Well, they happen out of the blue when they happen, but like, so you can't really say exactly when it's going to happen, but like, I do know, like, I'm at a higher risk for having a panic attack if I'm in certain situations. So like yourself, if I have too much on my plate all at once, like a lot of like different things that are pulling me in different directions, like kind of the lifestyle I was living in Ireland, like if there's a lot of things I have to do, that's going to prime me that I might get to a point where I'm overwhelmed and have a panic attack. And then other situations where I have panic attacks, if I like drink, not even super heavily, but if I drink like consecutively in a couple of days, like as the day, like if I go to day 2, my risk of panic attack is going to increase. Day 3, because you have all that anxiety and fear of a hangover, and then you're drinking again.
It's building up, yeah.
And so that'll do it. And then this doesn't happen to me anymore, thankfully. But I used to have not a fear of death, but a fear of being dead, which is slightly different. Like I didn't really fear like how or like the experience of dying, but I was very afraid of like no longer existing and just being gone. And that used to give me like severe and very intense panic attacks, and I just kind of get sucked into this void of like imagining not existing, and that would just kind of cycle, and I'd have these huge panic attacks. I don't have them anymore because I've basically done like exposure therapy for it, where I think about being dead every day. Like for 5 or 10 minutes, I'll just make myself do it, and then it's not.
That's intense enough, man.
Yeah.
What was? Yeah, bro. Darragh's just having a cup of tea. Is Daragh right, man? Oh no, he's imagining he's dead for 10 minutes.
Literally.
What was that like? It sounds a little intense.
Yeah, but like it was very much like, because the thoughts, I'd avoid thinking about it, and then when the thoughts became intrusive, they were like very scary. So. And then around this like 3 or 4 years ago, I started getting very into like Stoicism and Marcus Aurelius in particular, and they have this whole thing around memento mori, and that you should remember that you one day won't exist. And to
Mac Miller,
yeah, exactly,
big fan of memento mori,
and they say to meditate on that fact every day, because what it does is interesting, because I thought like you that it would be quite depressing. Because it sounds like it would be, but what it actually does for me is it makes me grateful for things I tend to take for granted. Because you're like, okay, I might die
100%.
like in 3 hours or in 10 minutes. So like, I'm very grateful that I have water to drink and I can use my hands and I can hear Martin through my earphones and I can be doing
Sounding beautiful, might I say?
Yeah, beautiful. So like, all these like things you just take for granted. You're just like, it's actually preposterous
100%.
that I'm alive at all. So that's what it allows me to do. It's really nice.
Yeah, man. It sounds like the same experience, like that gratitude is like I live by gratitude. Like I love nature. I try to keep us grounded. I was mentioning about meditation. Every time I meditate and wake up, one of the meditations I do that is I imagine so when I wake up in the morning, that used to be really tough for me because I could go to sleep. I could sleep on a rock like a babby. The world could be burning. I'll sleep on a rock like a babby. Martin, the world's burning. I'm going to sleep.
Yeah.
I'll wake up though, and the whole entire universe just goes and does it hit me? So when I wake up now, what I do is I imagine I'm in space and I imagine I'm looking at Earth and I imagine I'm just dust in the universe and the dust doesn't feel happy, it doesn't feel bad, it's just floating. And I just look at the Earth and like imagine how beautiful it is. And I'm feeling absolutely just nothing but peace. And then when I wake up and I'm Earth, I'm like, oh my God, Earth is so beautiful. And it fills me with so much gratitude for everything, for my jog, for my walk, for the nature. And I get so much happiness. Just give you an example. Yesterday I woke up, right? Meditated, worked out, right? Which is good. Went down to Dunnes Stores, got boxers and socks. I was the happiest man in the fucking world. I was like, bro, I just got some boxers and socks. Lit. So finding that happiness and joy in them small things. It sounds to me like that it just give you a whole lot of gratitude of how great.
Because I think it's very easy to find joy in big things. Like big things happen in your life. And it is, I think the secret is like being as happy with very small things as you are with the big things. Like if you can find the same level of happiness from both those things, then you're always going to have something. Because if you're only waiting for the big things, then you're going to spend a lot of time not happy. Because big things don't happen that often.
Daragh, that might be one of the best sentences you ever said. Daragh, we're going to take a little interval here. And in our interval, we do a quick fire session. I'm going to have some music play. Do-do-do. So this is just a fun little section where I just ask some like pretty simple questions and quick fire questions, right? Okay. So, are you ready?
Let's do it.
We'll do them. I think I only have like 4 or 5. Okay, favorite cereal?
Oh, Cocoa Pops.
Favorite rapper?
Probably Mac Miller at the moment. Or Chance the Rapper, maybe. One of those.
Morning or nighttime?
Nighttime.
Favorite memory of a holiday?
Almost getting arrested for climbing a Christmas tree in Krakow. There we go.
That's a very good one. That's a very good one. Irish hero or anyone Irish that you would look up to?
Ooh, big fan of Brezzy, Blind Boy. The two Norries did their podcast. Anyone who's just trying to like create space to normalize conversation around mental health, and there's a lot of them. So,
dream collaboration.
Writing,
be it poetry, be it writing, be it
writing
podcast.
A song with Dermot Kennedy would be awesome.
Jeez. Okay. And last but not least, favorite quote or a quote that regularly comes into your life.
I have a few.
Be it a song or be it
Oscar Wilde. Life is too important to take seriously. And then Voltaire has one that says, doubt is uncomfortable, but certainty is ridiculous. They're my two.
Okay, dope. Very nice. I like that a lot. Daragh, we're going to take a quick break here if you want to get water or anything. You all Gucci to keep going?
All good.
Yeah, you're all good? Okay, 100%. Daragh, right, so we've gone through a lot. We've gone through your childhood, your teenage years, your poetry, your basketball, your friend Irby, panic attacks, college and whatnot. Now, where does music and working at Welcome, let me get this right now. You're a music creator at Welcome Localize. How do you pronounce it?
We Localize. I actually don't work for...
We Localize.
I don't work for them anymore, but I did work for them for...
Back in 2019, according to your Facebook.
Yeah.
I was going to scroll all the way down to get some good nerdware bits, but bro, you post a lot on your Facebook.
No, for sure.
What was that like with your music? Because I remember you said you worked at Apple, and did you work at Apple Music too?
Yeah, I worked in the Apple Music department, but it wasn't like you're not making music. It's And a lot of this information is under NDA, so I can't be very specific.
I was thinking they don't like giving out anything to streaming services.
Yeah, but it's basically like a lyric transcription and like making sure all the slang and lyrics was accurate and all that kind of stuff is what I was working on. So I did listen to a lot of music, but I wasn't like making music, if that makes sense.
And music creator, are we localized? What was that?
But that's the title of the job I just explained, like musical curator.
Right. Gotcha. Did you enjoy being close to music, feeling like, because you enjoyed rap so much, and now did it ever enter your mind of like, oh, I might try working in the music industry?
To be honest, like I've always been very impressed by and admired people who make and create music, and I like to a point I would, in terms of like I'd be happy to help people write songs, and like, you know, more and more frequently I'm doing like my poems with music. So I would be open to like doing like a spoken word album or something. But like in terms of like actually doing like the hardcore traditional rap or singing, like that just isn't for me. It's not the lane. I'm not really interested in it. But I do love it, but it's just not what I'd be about. Like, so I definitely would go into like writing songs for people, helping people write songs, and then maybe doing spoken word stuff. But in terms of actually like the writing is my passion, and if I can use that to do some music, fair enough. But like making the music wouldn't be my strict passion, you know.
I got you. Daragh, you do, I counted 21 podcasts and 21 events on your website, and that you've given chats at and hopped on podcasts, and you said that has to be updated now, so we'll add a good few more in there to see.
Yeah, it's been about
for one
step
at a time.
6 months since I updated it. So
updated. So a lot of your work, obviously most of your work, is being a mental health advocate. It's offering your stories, just like Lonely Boy, your essays, personal stuff to you. Mm-hmm. You have a very good quote, being vulnerable in order to connect with someone. Mm-hmm. I thought that was very, very good. You're doing podcasts, chatting about, you're doing so many podcasts, you're chatting to individuals about your journey, you're going into the depths of your journey, you're chatting about maybe their journey, you're giving talks again about mental health stuff. Have you been able to detach from emotion of what you do, or does it ever feel like you're bearing a heavy weight of it? Because the reason I always have so much respect for people who spread the like good wisdom and knowledge about mental health, but the reason I've never delved into maybe myself as much is just because of feeling like I would be holding a weight. I would be almost like carrying a weight, where anytime I chat to someone mentions it, and I'm like, I'm open to talking about it, but I just don't want to talk about it 24/7. Mm-hmm. So is there a weight? Does it get hard sometimes chatting about like this deep stuff 24/7, or are you kind of in a place now where you're just able to do it, I guess?
Yeah, no, it's a very, very understandable question. And I think, maybe in the beginning there was a way to it, but now it's like I won't talk about something I'm not comfortable talking about, and that tells me that like if I'm uncomfortable talking about something, then it means I haven't processed it and moved through it yet. And there's no time clock on when that can happen, but like all the stuff with therapy and with depression and everything I talk about to date, I'm in a place where I'm comfortable with it. Like, these things have happened to me. They don't define me. They're parts of my story. And I think, and even like sometimes I might get caught randomly and I will get emotionally about it. Like emotionally during the TED Talk, I got quite emotional because it was a big night and talking about similar themes. And that'll catch me, but like that kind of lets me know that I still care about what's happening, and I'm not just a sounding board and just repeating myself over and over. Like, I still care, and it's still important. And I think the potential value of what I'm talking about outweighs my discomfort, because I'm like, if I talk about this stuff, even if it makes me uncomfortable, it might help someone to not take their own life. And that value is far more worthwhile than not doing it, because I'm like, I might get sad about this. Like, if I get sad about it, that's good. That means at least I'm feeling emotion, because there was years where I wasn't feeling emotion. So it's like, even now when I'm like in a poem I wrote recently is like, the saltiness of your tears are the taste of being alive. Like, even when you're feeling sad, you're still feeling emotion, and that means you're alive. So like, even in those moments, I'm like, I'm alive. This is great. So like, I don't tend to like shy away from talking about it anymore. I'm very comfortable with it. And then if on the off chance I do get upset, I'm like, well, that's good. That means I'm still here.
As you said, what you're doing has, and probably I would say it probably has at this point, I don't know if you know it has or not has, that saved someone's life. Like you putting out that energy and you putting out that wisdom out there is helping people, be it small or huge, which is incredible. Like, and so it's massive roses and daps and respect. Have you received messages, and if so, what it's like? What is it like? How are you feeling when you receive messages? Because sometimes when I've received very like wonderful messages and really heartfelt messages, and sometimes it can be hard to like 100% take it. Just like I'm a person that doesn't really accept. I don't really let criticism come in too much. I'm like, if someone I respect gives me critique, then I'll listen. But your day to day, if someone hates, someone critiques, I don't really listen. Yeah. If someone that I really respect gives me love, then like I'll slowly receive it. But if someone even is really nice to me or sends something, it can be sometimes difficult to like completely accept it and let it in. And like, yeah, I'm glad that helps. So when you receive messages, or if you receive messages, what's that process like of people heartfelt messages of your work?
Yeah, I think you're on the right path though, because I think you can't let negative shit get you too low, and you can't let positive shit get you too high. Like, it can't affect your emotions that severely, because otherwise you're going to start to become dependent on the external stuff to feel good about what you're doing. But I do get a lot of messages, and a lot of them are like people who've been in tough situations and felt like they were on their own, and the work I've done has helped them to know they're not on their own. And I do get really like beautiful and like things people don't have to say. Like, they don't have to send a message, they don't need to do this, but they feel like they should. And every time I get them, it does make my day. Like, I always thank people. I'm always generous with my time. If someone's like taking time to message me, I will take time to message them back. And I think it's just really, it's really nice, and it's important to me. And especially on days where I might be like questioning if I'm making a difference, and then someone messages me saying like, yes, you are, kind of like just right out of nowhere. That
you are, dude.
That
definitely
that really helps. But at the same time, like, you do have to like detach from it emotionally, like not let it get to you, either negative or positive. Like, you still have to be like, I can't like get complacent or get cocky or arrogant or whatever it is, because like at the end of the day, I'm not doing this work for like the flowers or whatever. I'm doing it so people don't feel alone. So like when people do get flowers, obviously it's nice, and we'll put them in a vase and we'll look at them, but like if I don't get flowers, that's also fine.
I get you. I think too, the process, I had a guest on called Patrick O'Donnell. He's a really good guy. He's a producer and engineer from Limerick, absolute genius. He's big into the process of everything. It's like the episode's called Enjoying the Process, and just being in the process of the outcome. Obviously you're having an incredible outcome, but you can't worry too much about the outcome or focus too much on the outcome. You have to enjoy the present, and that's how you give your best work. That's how you do in your poetry, when you're writing, when your speeches, your presentations. So you obviously, what's it like now from the first presentation maybe you ever did, or first talk, or to the TED Talk? But we won't get into the TED Talk yet, but what was that like? What's it like when you were, what was your prep, or how are you feeling from the TED Talk to your first one, like in that journey of public speaking and
it's interesting
taking it in your stride?
Like for the most part now, like so when I started, I would have got very nervous naturally, like, because I wouldn't have been very comfortable with public speaking, so I would have got really nervous. But now, like, I am almost more nervous if there's less people. So if there's like 700 people in a room, I'll be like, okay, this is fine. If there's like 6, I'll be like, this is harder to speak. It's harder to kind of do that performance for less people. You kind of have to have a bigger room to feel like anonymous almost, even though you're the person on stage. There's like an anonymity to the crowd. But if there's only like 6 or 7 people, you can like make eye contact with all of them, and that, I find that quite strange. But
gotta find the old eye contact.
So less nervous now, and generally speaking, like I because a lot of my talks are just talking about a lot of the stuff we talked about today. So like, I know my starting point. I know where I want to get to. They might give me half an hour, 25 minutes, whatever it is, and I'll be like, okay, I'll figure it out. I'll get there. Like, I'm a good storyteller. I know how to tell my own story, so I don't do much preparation. So like, all the talks talk about similar things, but every talk I do is different. Like, they're not like, very polished, perfect things. I just try to keep it real. But then like the TED Talk is slightly different because you only have 15 minutes and you have to be on script, and it's far more preparation for that. But generally speaking, like the prep is in living my life and experiencing and like understanding what I've experienced, and then just being able to communicate. And luckily I'm a good communicator, so that's always helped. But yeah, I think the difference now is just the level of nervousness, and it's not like you're a performer as well, so you totally understand this. It's not like you stop feeling nervous. You just get way better at managing it.
Yeah. So true. Oh man, you took the words out of my mouth. Because the nerves that you showed, like, I'm a big believer. Well, nerves and excitement is the same emotion. But I remember looking. I think it was Jordan Peterson. He was on about athletes, and he was on about when you watch the best athletes at, like, say 100 meters, they feel nervous as fuck. But the best athletes are able to transform that into excitement and feel the excitement of they're about to run, and that positive energy, instead of like being crumbled by like nervous.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer the nerves. There's two types of nerves. There's nerves where you're nervous because you care about it and you want to do well, and then there's nervous where you're unprepared and you're worried you're going to fuck up.
Yeah.
And I've been on the other side. Like, my worst nerves crippled me one time, and I learned the hard way of not having like a sound check or just simple things, or not knowing my lyrics. That was like because I wasn't prepared. But now anytime I am super prepared, it's just the nervous of the excitement of the gig, the people there. So the nerves are just a tricky one, but I would say a positive one.
Yeah, because I think if you don't have butterflies in your stomach before you're going on to do something, then it means you don't care about it. Like, nerves just tell you give a shit about the outcome of what's going to happen. So that means you care about the work you're doing. Like, so it's good. It's good to be nervous.
100%. Daragh, you're speaking about your TED Talks, and speaking about your beginning and to your TED Talk now, and you're speaking about how you're comfortable without going into detail. What's something, not even like of like your mental health, but what's maybe a side of your personality that you don't choose to put out there? Or is there a side, is there certain things that they don't have to be deep things, but they're like, I just keep that to myself, or like that's for me, that's not like, and you don't have to go into detail, just like things that are personal to you that maybe you don't.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Like, because in terms of like, I always try to be myself and be as authentic.
Not
as
even that you're not being yourself. It's just, I think everyone has something that, like, of course you speak openly about everything, but then there's like certain things that you might do in your life that like it's just you.
Yeah, no,
and like no one gets to like.
I get what you're saying.
Seeing, if that makes sense.
Oh well, I'm very private in terms of like my romantic life. Like, if I'm dating or seeing someone, like I'm not one for like. Yeah, like broadcasting that, or I don't need to put.
I think that's a good thing.
I don't need to put stuff on Instagram to show someone all that kind of stuff. Like, I just kind of keep that between me and the person I'm seeing, and that I've always been like that. I'm always like, this is just between me and that person. I don't need to like, I don't need everyone else's input for this to be valid, and that's something I probably like I would very rarely mention like relationships or who I'm seeing or what I'm doing. Like, it's just not part of the work. It's definitely outside of it. So that's probably the main thing.
Yeah, I think it's very important. I would be a big believer in relationships, romantic, that like there's no benefit to putting it out there on the internet. Like, I really don't see a benefit to posting pictures or doing any of that. For the health of an actual relationship, to me, it just brings a whole lot of unwanted baggage. So yeah, I'm also a big believer in not throwing that kind of stuff out there.
100%.
The TED Talk, bruh. I seen you doing the TED Talk, right? I was like, my God, he's doing a TED Talk. Absolutely was over the moon for you, man. As soon as I seen it was announced, I was absolutely over the moon. I'm a big believer in feeling other people's happiness. Like, the more jugs, Jay Shetty said, you can have one jug for your own happiness, but imagine you could have 10 jugs and feel happy for everyone else, and all of a sudden you have 10 jugs of happiness. So it was over the moon when I seen it.
I appreciate it.
What was it like getting the news and obviously doing it? But first of all, would you watch TED Talks? Did it mean like were you a big fan of the platform, or how did that feel?
Yeah, like I've always been aware and interested in TED Talks, but I'd be lying if I said it was like on my radar or like list of goals.
It's pretty fair.
Like I was like, oh, if it came up, happy days, but it wasn't something I was like working towards. And then what happened was an Olympic athlete had pulled out of the TED Talk lineup, and then they were looking for someone to replace it, and one of the organisers knew my work, so they got onto me, and they knew I lived here, or that I was moving here, and they were like, would you still consider like coming back for it and doing it? And I was like, absolutely. What kind of question is that?
I think I have time.
Yeah, I think I could do that. So that's how it came about. So it was all kind of like serendipitous, because usually you have to apply and kind of pitch yourself, and like you're applying for a job.
Oh wow!
So it was nice just to skip that process, I suppose. And then it was just from start to finish really, really enjoyable. It was fun, kind of. Because, like, you only have 15 minutes, so, like, figuring out what was the most potent and important thing I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
And then just distilling that down to, like, the most effective.
15 minutes.
Yeah. And I think I only did it in 13 in the end, so we cut off some time, which is good. But, like, it was really, really enjoyable. But, like, as I said, like, I'm generally comfortable with public speaking, but, like, TED is a whole different kettle of fish, because there's so much like pressure, there's cameras on you, you don't want to mess up. So I was very, very nervous, which was I was like, it's good that I can still get to this level of nervous. Like I'm not I'm not gone past it. Yeah, so it was good.
Definitely. Wowzers. So first of all, real quick, which is your favorite of the books? Is because it's like the recent one, Lonely Boy, or do you have a favorite? Like with me with music, but they're like my children. Like it's like, yeah, of course I have kind of favorites, but like they're all they're all like, I love them all in their own ways, like even if some of them are not very talented.
Yeah, I think though Lonely Boy is the most meaningful to me, because it's like it's essays about my own vulnerability and my own mental health, so it's a very personal book. So I think that definitely means the most to me, and it meant the most to me that it was published. But like having said that, like I really, really love my poetry as well, and I have a new collection coming out on the 24th of this month called Enigmatic, so I'm excited for that to come out. So like, I like you, I have love for all of the work, but not all were created equal, I suppose. Like Lonely Boy is definitely a special one for me. So
yeah. Oops. How does it, Daragh? How is the field? So, example with music, maybe like 10 years ago, even now, people hear a record deal and like, oh my god, a record deal. But once you start to learn about the music industry, a record deal basically is a loan. You get a nice loan and you have to pay back that loan, and you no longer own your work. And unless you've built up incredible leverage, like you're selling out shows with your fan base, you're streaming really well, you're not getting a good deal, and you're not going to own your music anymore. So with the music industry, obviously growing up, record deal, get a record deal. Oh my, that's all I have to do, get a record deal. And then I get into the music industry. I'm very grateful to work in the music industry, and I learn everything behind the curtains, essentially. All the great stuff and all like the not so great stuff. Yeah. So with music, if you do want to work with a record label and the opportunities that may bring, you need to bring a lot to the table. Like, and what your business is worth, you need to have a good fan base. You need to be doing shows, selling merch, essentially showing that your business is doing really well. And the record label, okay, we'll do business now. If you don't do that and get a record deal without leverage, then you're going to be in a very, very bad position, because the record label is going to own your music, sometimes for perpetuity. You might sign something called a 360, where they own everything. Okay. They own, if you ever do say Daragh Fleming signs a record deal 360, they could own your name, Daragh Fleming. Daragh Fleming decides to sell shampoo 20 years from now. Well, they'll get some of that shampoo too. Okay. So the music industry is like that. So what's the writer industry like? What's the poet industry like in terms of your craft, in terms of releasing books, your ownership, just the business of it? Because it's an art form, but every art form has the business side to it.
Yeah, like it's probably not as
predatory as the music industry.
Invasive, but there's still elements of it, like often it can be hard to get a book deal if you're not like well known, if you don't have a kind of an audience already, and then but like what happens is, like if you sign a book deal, you'll get an advance of a certain amount, and then you will get a percentage of royalties on each book sold, which is usually like around 10 to 15%. So like the publishing house obviously puts in the investment of like editing the book, formatting it, getting it printed, getting it in shops. But then as a result of that, they take 85 to 90% of the money that comes from the book. So they give you an advance and then you get a cut rather than them taking a cut. They're just giving you a cut and they're taking which makes sense because they're putting in all the initial investment and the risk of publishing your book. So as a result of that, it's very hard to get a book published because they have to be sure that your book is going to sell and they're going to make their money back. But in terms of like ownership, usually it's a case of like they have ownership of the first, like the printing rights of this book only, and they won't own anything else you create or do. So it is very much the ownership of your work stays with you.
So let's say they edited it for you. If you were to not go the publishing route, so say what would be the benefits? What are the main benefits of? So say you got it edited yourself, you put money into printing it yourself, formatting yourself. Mm-hmm. What would a publisher then offer that you wouldn't be able to? Is it just getting it in a store? Is it what are they offering essentially?
Yeah, well,
you wouldn't be able to maybe achieve
further reach and marketing. Like, so if you go and publish your own book, it's very unlikely that shops take on self-published work. If it doesn't come through like a publisher or an agent, shops are unlikely to take it on. And if they do take it on, they'll take it on in very small quantities. So a shop might take like 5 copies of your book, rather than if it's a publishing house, they might take 1,000 copies of your book. And then there's just like, we still kind of live in a almost like gatekeepy kind of validation.
I was going to use the word gatekeeper. Yeah.
It is so like there is almost a stigma with self-publishing. It says like, because you're self-publishing, it means your book wasn't good enough to be published by a company, which isn't always true, of course, but there is a risk in that like anyone can self-publish, and that therefore there's no quality assurance on the writing and the ability of the person to write, because anyone could just go and self-publish. So it kind of like what you're getting from the publishing house is like, you know, maximum reach and broadcast, and you're kind of getting a stamp of approval that this book is good enough to be published, kind of.
It's so crazy hearing what it's like, because you're the first person I've always interested, because I work for a startup company and I'm in the music industry. Mm-hmm. I'm very like always intrigued with business of things, and what you just said there, man, is literally the music industry. Yeah. Like, it's literally exactly what you explained. But what's happened recently, I don't know if you ever heard of artists like Russ,
mm-hmm.
Tech Nine.
Tech Nine?
These type of artists, especially Russ. Tech
Mm-hmm.
Nine? My man. So what's happened over the last 10, 12 years is an artist like Russ has found out how he blew up releasing a song every week, understood that he just needs relationships. To get to relationships, the right music, of course, an abundance of music non-stop, built up his fan base, and all of a sudden had a ton of leverage. Mm-hmm. So when a record label did come, he could sign. Now, he did sign, but he also realized that the record label could offer him nothing that he couldn't, because all he needed was money and relationships, mm-hmm. which when you break like business down, that's what so even like music, while it's a lot different now, and like record labels, you don't need record labels now, but record labels still exist. Mm. I would say that maybe like the writing industry will be similar, where it's the same thing. Like, anyone can do it, but there might be someone like on the come up now that like wants to break the whole entire writing industry, and 10 years from now that like books do accept a self-published book. Do you think the industry can go like that, or do you think it might be a long 100%. Way off?
And there exceptions to it already, like a very obvious one to me is Colleen Hoover, who is a bestseller everywhere, self-published initially, and I think she might still self-publish.
Wow.
So like, you know, and David Goggins famously
Goggins is
self-publishes, because like, you know, once you get to if you're famous, like if you've hundreds of thousands of followers, people will go and buy your book, and bookshops, if your book is selling like crazy, then bookshops will then have incentive to stock your book, and they'll go out of their way to get your book.
Gotcha.
But it's like if you're just a kind of, you know, regular person, small following, no one knows who you are, that's when it's difficult to self-publish and get into shops, because they're like, well, we don't know who you are, or we don't know anything about your writing. But if you're like a famous person, self-publishing would probably be the most profitable way to do a book, because you get all the profit and you don't have to give anyone a cut. So like it just depends.
Do you see yourself, because you're so consistent with content, you offer so much, you keep on generating more and more followers and everything, like if you were to step out of your trajectory, it's only going up, like it's up,
Mm-hmm.
and it has been for like the last number of years. Do you see a future where you will be able to self-publish and you're like, you will retain that ownership and, or not ownership, but the royalties, the money, like everything that you like deserve?
Maybe. Just because like, although I might get to a place where I can be profitably self-published, it's still a massive amount of work. Like the great thing about getting a publisher is that like all you have to do, and not like it's easy, but all you have to do is write
to write the book.
Is write the book and focus on making the book the best version of it is, and then someone else takes care of like how the book will look, how the book will be formatted, how it'll be like sent out. Because like if I self-publish, that means every time a shop orders books, I have to go to the post office and send them books. And there's like a process of that.
Yeah, man,
like,
the grind. Yeah.
Whereas like if you have a publisher, like that's on the publisher to sort all that stuff out. Like and they have the resources to be able to do that. So there is still a benefit inherently of having a publishing house, because they just take care of all that stuff. And like you make less money, but like the likelihood is you're probably going to sell, like you make less money per book, but you're probably going to sell way more books than you would if you didn't have the publisher. Therefore, you're going to make more money than you would have if you did self-publish. And that balance will tip if you entered a space where you have like 1 million followers or 1 million fans. That would tip, obviously, that if you self-publish, you'd make way more money. But like where I am now, like it's more beneficial to have a publisher. So I will continue with that for now.
Ladies and gentlemen, very well said, man. Is it difficult to make a living in your art form, in poetry and writing at the moment, or has it taken a while to be in a position now where you can live from your work, or what's that kind of journey been like?
It's becoming like increasingly a higher percentage of my like say what I take in terms of money. Like I still do other work, like I'm a head of content for a charity called Lust for Life. I do some voiceover work for people's audiobooks, stuff like this. But what has increased dramatically, like so the amount of money I might make per book hasn't changed too much. Like it has increased, but like slowly. But what came in as a result of the writing is like far more opportunities for paid public speaking, and like people commissioning essays that are paid. So like the book money like slowly increases, but then you know the paid public speaking work dramatically increases. So like, you know, there's different avenues as a result of the books that make money for you, and it's just being able to leverage those opportunities and understand that like sometimes doing a talk for free is good because there might be someone in the audience who'll then offer you a paid, and it's just like, you know, figuring that stuff out.
I'm a big believer in Daragh that you never know who's watching, like in a good way. Like you just never know. I remember Tyler found one of his producers. I think the beat had like 6 views on YouTube or something. Obviously, that doesn't happen every day, but putting your work out there, and for all the people that do hit you up and like and follow your content and even drop messages, man, there's always so many other people that enjoy what you do that just don't engage with what you do. So
for sure,
that's a really great thing too, out when you're doing your speeches. Daragh, my man, we've come to the near the end. First of all, man, this is like an hour and a half or so. This is great, man.
Well, Joe Rogan
you're
experience.
Such a nice person. Yeah, man, you're such an easy person to chat to. It's just natural. Well, I was quite excited just on a person having the crack. I knew you just had like, I kind of give myself a pat on the back and like of like a gift of like just spotting really good-hearted people and people I connect with. Like I just always seem to meet them. So even when I seen your content, I was like, I just got a good feeling about him. I got a good feeling about him that like he's a real one, that he has like a really blessed heart. So to like have this conversation today, I knew we were just gonna have fun. Like I knew it was just gonna like super knowledgeable, but also it was just gonna be like real fun and whatnot.
Yeah, 100%, man. And like it's likewise, like, you know, you give off such a positive energy, and I think, you know, it's very easy to be sound, and yet a lot of people struggle with that.
Yeah.
And like, you know, like I'm not a very complicated person. Like I'm like I like to be who I am, and if people, you know, relate to that, then like it's very rare. What I'm trying to say, it's very rare that I won't get on with someone. Like I'm very like, you know, easygoing, and like I enjoy hearing how people live, especially if they live way differently to me, or if we're living different lives. We're kind of putting off the same energy. It just gives me a lot, that I'm like, it's cool that like as human beings we can be so similar yet be doing completely different things with our lives. And that's what I liked about you. I was like, you know what, like when I remember the first song I heard was you were remember you were teasing late nights for ages, and I was like, this song is a banger, but I'm only getting like 7 seconds of it, like. And that's when I saw you first, and I was like, I like this what this guy's doing, like, and you know, it's just such a positive, and like, because it's so easy to be cynical and talk shit about people, that like it's nice to see someone who's like adversely against that and not doing that. So it's good to see it.
Trying, man, trying. As you would say, as the great Daragh Fleming would say, be sound, drink water, look after your head.
Nice.
Before I let you go, the podcast is called One Step at a Time, and it's all about the steps people take. If someone talking, I was watching one of your videos, and how talking is so encouraged, and when someone goes, or someone is going through something, but someone that like can't talk, someone that just can't bring them words, they can't explain, what would maybe be some advice that like someone that may want to tell somebody what's happening in their life, or they're dealing with something but can't, they don't have the words, they're not able to communicate that yet?
Yeah, no, it's a good question, and it's definitely something a lot of people struggle with. I would say talk to yourself about it first, and by that I mean write down how you're feeling, and tomorrow do the same, and the day after do the same, and get used to actually seeing and reading the words of how you're feeling, and getting used to that content, like the subject of like, I'm not feeling okay, I need help, whatever it is, and getting used to that. And then you can build into like telling, because you don't need to tell everyone. Like I'm in a position where I can tell everyone, and it's not a big deal for me. But initially it was like I struggled to tell one person, and then I was able to tell another person, and then I kind of built in that. So like, tell yourself first, and get used to telling yourself how you're feeling by journaling every day. And then eventually you'll get to a point where like, okay, I can tell my mom, or I can tell my girlfriend, or I can tell my best friend, because I've gotten comfortable with how this is sitting with me. Just start that way.
It's a good start, man. And drink water, guys.
Drink water.
Guys, bananas and water. I'm telling you, it'll change your life, guys. Bananas and water.
100%.
My God. Again, just say if anyone, banana companies want to sponsor me, guys, I'm still looking for a sponsorship.
Brought to you by Fipes.
Daragh, my man, it's been an absolute pleasure, my man. Thank you for being okay with my technical difficulties and your time, because your time is precious, and I'm very grateful, and just being a good guy, man. Good guy with a good message.
An absolute pleasure, man. Thank you very much.
100%. As I would say, this has been another episode of One Step at a Time with your host, the Ocean Flight 11, heading straight to full potential. Guys, don't have a good day. Have a great day. God bless.
Yeah, it goes late nights on the road. Yeah, that's just how it goes. Yeah, that's just how it goes these days. I'ma try my best to make this flight, but if I don't wake up tomorrow, then the sun will still be. Yeah, it goes late nights on the road. Yeah, that's just how it goes. Yeah, that's just how it goes these days. I'ma try my best to make this flight, but if I don't